Oh shit, here we go again.
We are back on the boulevard with another "These albums are perfect except for one song" video. It seems y'all like this concept and, just love hearing me give my opinion.
Some of y'all about to be real mad at me, but it must be said.
As a reminder, these are some of my all-time favorite albums, spectacular, beautiful, cohesive bodies of work, where there's just one song I would take out, whether it's a song I personally dislike or something that I just feel doesn't really work alongside everything else. And so if you removed that one song, you would end up with a perfect 10 out of 10 album. I went through 7 albums in part 1, which you should go check out if you haven't already, and now we're gonna do 7 more. And as I said then, and I'll say it again, remember, this is just my opinion. It's all in good fun. I don't mean any insult to any artist. They are all spectacular. This really is just in good fun. And I apologize in advance if you ever feel offended by my opinions. Also, just a quick unrelated side note, I am going to start posting shorts soon. The long-form content I do on my channel is largely just commentary, but I've also always wanted to post other stuff here and there, like mashups, covers, whatever random stuff that I can come up with. And so I thought shorts would be a good way to do that. I'm going to start with just some mashups. Y'all say you like my mashups when I include them very rarely in my videos, so I'll be doing some more. Okay, enough of that. Without further ado, let's get right into the video.
Bleed me dry like a goddamn vampire.
Starting the list off strong, we have Guts by Olivia Rodrigo, and I know a lot of y'all are already going to disagree with me right off the bat, but it must be said. Last time I talked about Olivia Rodrigo on this channel, I mentioned how there is just one Olivia Rodrigo song I don't really like. It's on Guts, and that song is Get Him Back. I know, this song is a lot of people's favorite on the album, or at least in like the top 3. You don't gotta tell me twice. But I don't know, something about this song just does not work for me. I totally get the vibes. This isn't about the song not fitting into the album. This is very Guts. It's grungy, it's sarcastic, but also kind of angry and vitriolic. It has all the right pieces. It's just not my cup of tea. For this kind of grungy, sarcastic vibe, I actually much rather prefer Bad Idea, right? Mainly because the vocal moments really stand out to me on that song. I think it's more upbeat and up-tempo as well, so this kind of sarcastic rapping is just more fun on that song, and I think it just fits better. And the production has this kind of like quirky experimental touch to it that I like a lot. Meanwhile, Get Him Back just is not giving anything for me. If you want more of my thoughts on this song and Olivia Rodrigo in general, I recommend you go check out that other video I did, really going through Sour and Guts more in depth. But Guts is still, of course, an incredible album. Outside of Get Him Back, every song is at least good, if not phenomenal, really taking Olivia's punk pop essence to its fullest potential. I mean, this was the album in 2023. I was obsessed with All American Bitch. I was obsessed with Logical. This was a great. I did get a comment as well saying they thought Guts would work for this list, and I was like, damn, you read my mind. And then they said the skip song is Lacey. Sorry, I just had to quickly defend my girl Lacey for a second. That is a bop and a half. Plus, she wrote this song at the college I go to, so like, I don't know, I guess I'm just like especially connected with her. Ew.
I'm so sick of that same old love. That shit, it tears me up.
Now let's not get it twisted. Selena Gomez is a queen of pop, alright? And I don't know, I feel like every now and then the internet randomly has something to say about her, whether it's her voice cracks on stage or her choice of a lover. But I really couldn't care less. I love Selena Gomez's music. It's great. And while she is largely more famous for various individual hit songs that she's done, I think Revival is undoubtedly her biggest album cycle. Pretty much every single from this album was a giant hit. She was low-key carrying the pop scene for a while, and these songs are classics to this day. Alongside those, though, we have an album consisting of many other beautiful tracks, from heartfelt ballads about self-image and lost love like Camouflage and Revival, to upbeat dance pop hits like Me and the Rhythm, Body Heat, and Rise. This is an album largely focused on self-confidence, and I just love the feel-good vibes here. It's an album I can always come back to when I'm looking for that kind of laid-back pop sound that is danceable, but it's not, too dancey, if that makes sense. And when I'm doing these lists, I'm mainly focused on the standard editions of the albums, but even the deluxe edition would count for this list. But there is just one song on the album that doesn't really quite hit like the rest, and that is Survivors. It's not egregiously bad or anything, it's just kind of whatever to me compared to the pop perfection otherwise present throughout this album. Like, it would probably work great as a standalone song, but I don't know, I don't really like it in this album. And because all the other songs are just really good and very cohesive. Having this one moment where the energy dips kind of takes away from the whole experience. And so without this song, I do think Revival would easily be a 10 out of 10 album. And before we move on, let's just play this iconic Taylina clip, just so y'all don't forget.
Can't shoot myself. I mean, I could, but why would I want to?
Whip, whip.
I'm too classy for this world. Forever, I'm that girl.
Next on the list, we have Renaissance by Beyonce. I feel like there isn't much to say about this album that hasn't already been said. It's one of the best rated albums of recent years for a reason. It is a powerful display of how house and dance music can be mainstream while also being a beautiful homage to ballroom culture. It really is just one of a kind. I remember when I first listened to Renaissance, I didn't quite get it or find it right for me, but I gave it a few more tries and something about it really started to grow on me until I was pretty much addicted. And that kind of is how this album works. It just has this infectious electric sound to it that really gets you up and moving. For me, the highlight of this album definitely has to be the transitions from song to song. Y'all already know I'm a sucker for good album construction, and this could not be a better example of an album just flowing perfectly from one song to the next, because they quite literally flow from one to the next, designed to mimic a DJ mix at a club. With that said, there is one song toward the end though that I fear doesn't quite live up to the dance pop perfection of everything else, and that is All Up in Your Mind. I don't really know the vibes on this song and what people think, so y'all can let me know down below if you think this makes sense or if I'm way out in left field here. But I don't know, this song has just never stood out to me when I listen to Renaissance. It's pretty much the same melody the whole time, and I feel like after the first bit, I've kind of heard all I want to. The ending is incredible though. If it was just 3 minutes of that, I don't think I'd mind as much. And the ending of Thick going into this song is also done really well. I mean, again, the transitions are phenomenal. But to be honest, the ending of Thick is just heavenly in and of itself, where if we went straight from that into America as a problem, I think that would work too. And I think it would just make the ending of the album, extremely tight-knit. But that's my only complaint. Otherwise, this truly is an album for the books. Thank you, Beyonce.
Coming in like a western wind. Took a feel home from all directions.
Carly Rae Jepsen has always been one of my personal favorite artists and easily is one of the most underappreciated pop girls of our generation. Unfortunately, I do think her music has always been slightly overshadowed by Call Me Maybe, to the point where even when I try to bring her up to my friends as a worthwhile pop girl, they just say, "Oh, the Call Me Maybe girl?" Like, she has been releasing high-quality pop music since then, including arguably the best synth dance pop album of the 2010s, but some of y'all aren't ready for that conversation. Anyways, we are here to talk about a different album, her 2022 release, The Loneliest Time, which I believe to be perfect except for just one song. If you're unfamiliar with this album but you were around on TikTok in like late 2022, you might be familiar with this clip.
I'm coming back for you, baby. I'm coming back for you.
Yep, that's from this album. And while that clip did kind of get pretty popular around the TikTok sphere, I don't think anyone knew where it was from, let alone that it was the so-called Call Me Maybe girl. While Carly Rae Jepsen's output has always largely focused on longing romances, crushing on guys who don't want you back, that sort of thing, The Loneliest Time is a little different in that it's much more introspective and vulnerable, with this really interesting spiritual lens to everything and a beautiful, nostalgic, dreamy sound, from upbeat singles like Beach House and Western Wind to more laid-back, introspective tracks like Benz and Go Find Yourself or whatever. The one song, however, that I feel holds this album back from being perfect is Sideways. It's just kind of a personal taste thing again. It's the only song on the album that I find to be kind of boring and drag down the energy ever so slightly. So yeah, without this song, this would be a perfect album. Revisiting this album for this list was honestly so fun though. It just instantly takes me back. It definitely deserves more appreciation. Alright, it's about time I threw in some K-pop into the list. Honestly, there's a lot of albums I could choose from the K-pop world, but I figured I'd pick one that y'all might be familiar with, Blackpink's The Album. Yes, that is the title. And it was intentional. Fans had been asking Blackpink for a full-length album for so long, pretty much their entire career, because they're so popular, until they finally released one and then literally called it The Album. Anyways, I was obsessed with this album when it came out. These 8 tracks really just feel like Blackpink sound at its finest. Well, all except one. I know some of y'all might expect me to say Ice Cream, because I know that song was not the most popular when they released it as a single, but honestly, I think it's really fun. It's a nice switch up of their typical like badass girl crush sound to this more cutesy concept, and sure, some of the lyrics are cringe, but like, it's K-pop, what do we expect? And we already went over how my girl Selena Gomez stays slaying the pop game, and that's no different on this track. It's fun. Y'all say I hate fun, but I don't. The one song I would actually remove from this album is Bet You Wanna featuring Cardi B. That, in my opinion, is the sore thumb here. And I don't think this opinion is super unpopular. I don't think people hate this song, but I also don't think people really like it all too much. It's just kind of whatever. This is another case, as with many others, where the song itself really isn't that bad, and as a standalone it would probably work fine, but something about it being right in the middle of this album just feels like a dip in energy. Almost out of place, I don't know. Otherwise, this is a phenomenal piece of work. I'm excited to see what they do this year since they're supposedly coming back. We'll see what happens. The album Glory Days by Little Mix was quite literally their glory days. They were really just unstoppable during this era with hit after hit coming out, very similar to Revival as kind of Selena Gomez's big hit era. And similarly, you're probably familiar with a lot of the singles from this album, you know, Shout Out to My Ex, Power, No More Sad Songs, Touch. Like, these really were doing the thing. This is pop perfection, but so is the rest of this album. It is really incredibly done. It just takes Little Mix's fun, pop, harmonious sound. It takes their blend and it really pushes that as far as you can go with it. And while I do think LM5 is the actual fullest realization of Little Mix persona as a group, Glory Days is still really good. It's a great era, but there is just one song that I think holds this album back from being truly perfect, and that is Oops featuring Charlie Puth. What I would say about this song is, oops, you should have left it off, actually. And before y'all come for me, Leanne herself said that she doesn't like this song very much either. It would be the one Little Mix song she threw in the bin. So I'm totally justified here.
If you had to put one Little Mix song in the bin, what would it be and why?
I'd probably say Oops.
Really?
Yeah.
It's better off as friends,
Yeah.
and I
Oh,
accidentally leave it
Yeah.
when I know what
Let's
to
not.
do. Big
No
fan.
more.
Similar to her, it's just kind of like a let's just not do this. I don't think the melody does anything for me. I don't think this collaboration works. Like, it's just a very low energy, out of place moment in an otherwise, you know, perfect album. And I want to clarify that we are just looking at the primary track list, not the deluxe. That's kind of the case for all the albums I do in this list whenever I'm talking about this. And I'm intentionally doing that here because there's a certain song on the deluxe edition that also really does not do it for me. But I don't have to address it. I don't have to include it. I only have to look at the remaining 11 tracks on the main Glory Days album. And when you have those 11 tracks, you have a perfect track list right here.
So sorry for looking so pretty tonight.
I wanted to include something of Sabrina Carpenter in this list. After all, she is kind of at the top of the game right now. And I got a couple comments under part 1 saying that they thought Short and Sweet would fit into the list, albeit with different songs being the cut song. And I thought about it for a while, but to be honest, I think Short and Sweet is a no-skip album. Like, it really is. Not necessarily a perfect album, but I don't really think there's a single song holding it back from being perfect like the others on this list. Then there's Emails I Can't Send, which I do believe is actually perfect 100% of the way through. And I've already done a video about it. Maybe I'll talk more about it in the future. I do think it's very underappreciated. But anyways, we're gonna take this further back to, in my opinion, her next best album, Singular Act 1, which I do consider to be an album that is almost perfect and only held back by one song, that being Mona Lisa. Honestly, there's not too much to say about this album. It's pretty standard pop music. You know, at this time, Sabrina didn't have a defined, unique pop sound quite like she does now, but that doesn't mean the music was bad, okay? This album is fire. Like, it really is just bop after bop. Again, it doesn't have that kind of humor, irony, charm the way that Short and Sweet does, or that sentimental touch the way Emails I Can't Send does. It really is just fun, energetic, good pop music with really great vocals on Sabrina's end. And that's why Mona Lisa, I think, holds it back, because the song isn't bad, it's not out of place, it's just not quite as good as the others. And so again, it's like a dip in energy. But every other song is a banger. This album always gets me in a good mood. And there's songs from this that are still classics, like Sue Me and Paris. Don't get it twisted, this was an important era for Sabrina, and definitely a big stepping stone to her journey and where she is now. But that's going to be all for this list. I really like this concept, and so if I can think of more, maybe I'll do a part 3. Or another idea I had is looking at some albums you guys have been suggesting in the comments for the list and doing reactions on whether I agree or not. That could also be fun. I also want to do a video that is like, these albums are perfect, period. Like, no skip albums, genuinely. So that'll be coming at some point. Let me know down below what you think, what other albums you want to hear me talk about. My goal for my next video is to do that Taylor Swift discography analysis part 3. I know some of y'all have been waiting for that. So stay tuned. I'm working on it. Have a good day or night whenever you're watching this. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you soon. Bye!